Hey there, everyone. My name's Julie Galano. I am one of the co-founders of GME Compass, where we turn the complexities of GME into clarity. And we are here today. I would like to introduce to you Dafny Argueta. She is my co-founder, my partner in crime here at GME Compass. And welcome, Daphne.
Well, thank you. Hi, Julie.
Um, so tell us a little bit. I know I fell in love with you as soon as I met you. I felt like we had kind of an instant connection, and our paths were always meant to kind of align and cross. But tell us a little bit about your professional experience and how you got here, a little bit about yourself.
So I've been in GME 13 years now, and I actually fell into it like totally by accident. I was at a time that I was changing, I was always clinical. I was a medical assistant. If anything, I was going to go to pediatric medical school at some point, like, right? Like that was always my goal of being some type of clinician. And then I had my daughter, wanted to be closer to home and applied to two positions. I applied to a fellowship coordinator position in OB-GYN, and then I also applied for an admin assistant position. And I was just like, I really wanted the admin position, like, right? Because that's the one I knew, like, right? I knew all the clinical stuff. And although I did work with residents in podiatry, they weren't ACGME accredited. So, and this wasn't an accredited program. I was like, I can't do that. There's no way that I'd be able to do that. And I interviewed with both the managers, one for fellowship and then one for the administrative assistant position. And the director for the administrative position said to me, you could do this job, but you're going to get bored. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm not going to get bored. Like, I'm saying, I could do it's like, no, 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 you're going to get bored. You need, saying, I think you would actually be better suited for the fellowship coordinator position, which I ended up getting. And, and it was a whirlwind. I had no idea what I was doing. And there were times where I was just like, what? I can't do this. And little by little, as I started to really get to know and understand what my role actually was, it was not a secretarial role. It was not an admin role. From day one, I was part of the leadership team. And that made a difference for me in terms of as I was going into the role and, you know, starting to fall in love with it. For that, I was, sought out for feedback, what do you think about this? How do we solve this problem? How do we solve this issues? And I'm sitting in a room with physicians, and I'm the only non-clinical person in this room, but yet you're looking at me for guidance and feedback on how we can strengthen our program, how can we improve a process and things like that. And then once I really realized how important my role was is when I really started to fall in love with it. When I really started to then invest not just in myself, but getting my department to now invest in me as well in my professional development, whether it was going to a conference or, going to a conference or applying first to be the wellness chair for ATMOG, which is how you and I met. And I remember actually seeing the posting and thinking to myself, like, I could do that. And it was actually my program director at the time that said, absolutely, you could do that. And my first actually experience with leadership was the wellness chair for ATMOG. And funny about that is that I was only there for a very short period of time. I was only there for a few months. And then the position for vice chair opened up. And then I thought, I really can't do this. And, Jen Higgins, I am calling you out. Uh, she
My little buddy.
Yeah, I'm calling you out because, you're also kind of part of how this, partnership and purpose happened. Um, not only encouraged me, she pushed me to apply for vice chair. And once I became vice chair, and I remember going to the first conference and after, we give our presentations of like what our goals are and things like that, and having all the coordinators come up and congratulating and just like looking forward to like working with us and things like that. And then automatically, like you said, you and I connected at a level that I don't think even the other board members could understand, at the level that not only that we connected, but also at the level of the level of where we see this where we see this, like, this is not a job for us, this is a career, like, right, we've worked so hard to get to this point, to be able to advocate and share what we know now 13, 19 years like into it. And and I fell in love with it. Like, and and continue to fall in love with GME. And it's not an easy job. It's not an easy role at all. And it does, it doesn't necessarily get much easier. You just know how to manage it. You become more strategic in terms of how you're able to manage your program. So, and what I love the most about GME, what I love the most about GME is, you know, essentially that same concept of, being able to be in a leadership position and being able to have insight and being able to be part of something that's bigger, like, right? That adds to the whole infrastructure. For example, I don't I don't train residents. I don't train fellows. But when I see them graduate, I know that I did something. I made sure that they had an accredited program and that they had the support both from a program standpoint, but also from them, from their well-being. The residents for me were the biggest part, the biggest driver of my job.
That's so interesting, though, to me that, well, two things that I feel like I learned from that after all of these years is one, I had no idea that you always intended to be a clinical person. And two, I think it's hysterical because we always say how we're just kind of the same person in two different bodies, that we think so similarly and we see the world very similarly. And both of us applied for completely different jobs and
Completely
we're like,
different jobs.
nope, that's not for you.
And I did one time where I did see that admin director one day and I said to her, I have to thank you. And she's like, me? And I said, yes, because you turned me down for a position. I was a little upset about it, but now in hindsight, I see what you saw. You saw something in me that I was not ready to see. And that's also kind of been kind of the journey of my life of, where I've been fortunate enough to be around faculty and mentors and others that can see the things that Daphne sometimes is not, ready to see. And then being able to put me in this position that now, you know, we're able to have GME Compass and, and be here with you today. Um, so yeah, it's just another reason why we work.
So, so what outside of GME, outside of work and, and your why in terms of your professional why, but what's your personal why? Like what really fills your cup and kind of rejuvenates you and makes you whole?
So, in my presentation, if you you know that in the presentations that I've given, my why is always at the end, and that's my family. Like, right, if I'm having a bad day, ask me about my family, and you will instantly get a smile on my face, and you will see the ice melt away. I have a wonderful husband, my high school sweetheart, who we've been together for collectively like over, let me see, 10 years now. Excuse me. We've been together for 10 years. We have a daughter. She's 10 years old. I have an older son. He's 22. He's getting ready to graduate college. I'm also a caregiver. I take care of my parents. I have elderly parents. And then I have my sister who is my BFF, my ride or die, my road dog, so my family they're really the drivers. They're really the ones that make me get up in the morning. And when things are going well, they're there cheerleading and things like that. But when things are also going low, they're there to pick me up. So they're definitely the reason why I work as hard as I do, in order to be able to not only provide for them, but also to be able to be of support for them. We're a very close knit family. And I also have a cat. Very important to say that I also have a cat. But also, other than that, I love listening to music. I'm Latin from descent. So my father's from Honduras, my mother's from Colombia. So most of the time I'm listening to, salsa or punta, which is from Honduras. And I love music. I'm saying I love now actually taking self-care time, which is like going getting my nails, disappearing from everyone, having my own day where I, go get my nails done or have like a nice little lunch and things like that. And these self-care things this is all new. So don't think like, oh, Daphne, you're great. No, 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 no. This is all new. And I'm pretty sure my sister's gonna call me out in the comments soon. But those are the things that and spending actual time with my husband, because again, like he's my high school sweetheart, my best friend, the one that will, if I say I'm gonna go reach to the moon, he's like, yeah, I'll build you the spaceship. I'll build you the spaceship versus everyone else is like, you're cray cray. He's like, no, 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 she got this, she got this. And, but that also kind of shows that also kind of shows why I have the level of confidence and experience and that I have is because I have their support as well. And and that makes a difference. Like my son is studying sports communication, and one of the things he learns about is a lot about how a team functions. And and the team can't function without his support. So my family is my lifeline.
So, other thing that I've never known is, so I need your son to present my adaptability presentation with
Yes.
me.
Yes. He could.
I need him as like my co-presenter because he
And
probably
I
totally
love that. Yeah, I love that presentation. I love whenever you give that, and I just wait for like the punch, like you can tell the goal. You got it.
could.
But yeah.
So and then, finally, like what are some of your goals? What are some of your personal goals and some of your goals for GME Compass?
So a personal goal for me is always lifelong learning. Like, right, I'm always going to, continue to invest and provide in my professional development, making sure that, you know, um, so that way I can be of support, not just for the programs or the institutions or anyone that I support, but, also too that I'm always trying to excel in one shape, form, or fashion. My goals for GME Compass is I want GME Compass to be exactly why we called it that, a compass, a tool for not just new program managers. My time as vice chair, my niche, my area of interest was the support for new program coordinators. And, during my time in AtMog, created a new program manager workshop, created a mentorship program, along with you, Julie. And, a lot of that came from my own experience in GME of, yes, I loved it. I love it now, but it was a very, very difficult time where, again, a lot of things were happening and I did not know. And now all the things that I know, I want to be able to, we want to be able to share it with new program managers. So you don't get to 13, 19 years to say that I love it, that you can start saying that you love it from, from the jump, from the go, that you can see that, that there is so much growth and so much potential and how much you are important and valuable to the not only the structure of the program, like, right, you're not just like doing like the task, but like you are the one of the biggest cogs in that wheel. And without and I
You're
don't
not
we
the
can
biggest you are the hub of that
you're
wheel.
the hub of that. Like you are that cog, like, right? And we can get a panel of 10 program directors who have not had a coordinator for in that seat for like even a day and can tell you like how that is detrimental to them. So I want GME Compass to be a place, and a resource that we didn't have when we first started. Come here, get the knowledge that you need, get the resources that you need, network, connect. These are all the things that we did in order to be able to get to where we are now. Like, right, we didn't get here just by talking to ourselves. We connected, we networked, we found resources, but we had to do everything in just, all these different places where now we have it all in one. We have it all in one. So,
That's so important. I appreciate you saying that. Like, thank you for saying that because I think it's really exciting to see GME Compass kind of come into fruition and where it goes. And, we kind of had version one of all of these things, but
hmm
to see the opportunity for us to take these visions and thoughts and projects that were extremely successful, well loved, helpful about legacy and the next generation, but we can now do it in a broader, bigger scale across specialties, across subspecialties. I think that is probably one of the most exciting things.
It is exciting, and and again, it's just 2.0 of the work that, that we had started together during our time as chairs. And like you said, it actually feels a lot more rewarding now because our OB-GYN program coordinators is like they got the best, like, right? They got all this, special training, and like, we were really trying to work on like all these different things. And it's just like, we are all doing the same thing, whether you're in OB, internal medicine, vascular, cardiology, doesn't matter. We all have to do a CCC. We all got to complete APES. We all got to submit milestones and, all these things. And, so to be able to provide GME Compass to all of GME, like, that is also, aside from it being a goal, like that's one of the things that's been very rewarding, especially about, just the planning and putting everything together and how thoughtful we have been because we've been using our experiences to be able to help shape, GME Compass, to what it is going to be. So, it's definitely rewarding to be able to bring that out of OB-GYN and, and bring it out to the entire GME community.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing everything about you, learning a little bit as well as kind of the goals and where we can take this.
Yes, thank you, Julie.
Bye bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Thank